Hi, guys. Welcome back to another episode of the Autism Our Story podcast. Today, I have the opportunity to interview Kezhia Chesney. Kezhia's daughter has a rare condition that is considered one in a billion. She's sharing her story today in hopes to bring awareness to their experience and also hoping that she might help others feel seen that might be going through what she's going through. We're also hoping that this information will reach the right people that might be able to provide them with answers to the many questions that they might have. Kezhia, I'm so excited to be able to chat with you today. I'm going to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself, and we're going to start from there.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. So my name is Kezhia. I'm from Michigan, and up until now, I was just one of those regular full-time working moms and balancing that career and family like so many others. So lately, I guess I've been feeling like I'm entering some sort of spiritual rebirth, reassessing, growing, and seeing where this new chapter takes me. I don't have all the answers yet, but I'm here to explore, to learn, and to share Persephone's journey as it unfolds. So, like you said, I have that one in a billion little miracle, and I just want to share her story with the world.
Yes, absolutely. And I just know that her story will, help others feel seen, because I believe there are others out there that might be feeling like they're alone. Given the nature of the condition, it is very, very rare. So I'm so thankful that you are willing to share your story. So I know that your daughter has a rare condition that you mentioned is one in a billion. I just wanted you to be able to share a little bit more about it, like what it is exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. So Persephone has a rare genetic disorder. It's actually called 1q43q44 deletion syndrome. And that essentially means that she's missing a section of genes in her very first chromosome. So while it's documented in literature, it's so rare that there's not any standardized treatment plan. It's so rare that it doesn't even have a formal name. It sounds just like a bunch of jumbled letters. And with that rare disease or rare syndrome, every case just presents uniquely and differently. So the missing genes is what's crucial for that brain development. So many cases, it leaves a range of neurological and physical challenges. So children with this condition often experience that global developmental delays, microcephaly, where they have a smaller head due to underdeveloped brain growth. They have agenesis of the corpus callosum, which is that missing structure that connects the two halves of the brain, seizures, feeding difficulties, hearing impairments, and often additional genetic disorders. So I feel every day with Persephone is like navigating just uncharted territory. There's no roadmap. There's no set expectations. Doctors can give us potential outcomes based on maybe the 13 case studies that they have, but there's no way to predict how she will develop over time. So we have become her voice, her researchers, her biggest advocates, and it's just piecing together information from medical studies, different families, and just our own observations.
Sounds like it is really hard to deal with, as a mother. I just need to let you know you are doing an amazing job as her advocate. And, it seems like it requires a lot from you to do research. I feel like sometimes the doctors don't even have answers for you, so you have to go out there and do your own research. So how did you find out about her condition? What were some signs that you noticed, and how old was she when she got diagnosed?
So from the moment Persephone was born, we knew something was different. Actually, I knew something was different. She was a perfect baby. She was, despite a healthy full-term pregnancy, she was very small at birth. 6 pounds and 5 ounces. But even at the hospital, she kind of struggled with weight gain. When she was about 3 days old, we went to our first checkup with our pediatrician, and she noticed a lack of range of motion with her feet. And eventually we were sent to a orthopedist. She was diagnosed with congenital vertical talus, which is a rare foot deformity it makes weight bearing very difficult. When she was also in the hospital, she failed a number of her newborn hearing screenings, raising concerns about her auditory development. And then with each passing month, new challenges just emerged, leading to a growing number of specialists, neurologists, geneticists, audiologists, cardiologists, gastroenterologists. By the time she was a year old, we've seen over a dozen specialists, each trying to piece together the puzzle before we even had a genetic diagnosis. So despite her having a full-term pregnancy, no indications of a genetic disorder, she still struggled with that weight. And no matter how much we fed her, she wasn't growing at that expected rate. Doctors labeled her as failure to thrive, which was a punch in the gut and the most heartbreaking term when you were doing everything possible to nourish your child. So as months went on, she missed more and more developmental milestones. By 6 months, the differences became clearer. She wasn't holding her head, she wasn't sitting up, and she was just engaging with the world not like other babies would. Something deeper was going on, and then we were finally referred to that geneticist, ironically, part of the National Organization for Rare Disorders. And after months of testing, we finally got that diagnosis. But instead of bringing clarity and answers, the diagnosis just brought more questions.
Like what you just shared just sounds like a lot. This is your baby just had the baby, and from the beginning, everything, there's just so much, that just keeps piling up. How did you feel with all that was happening?
It was heartbreaking. It was devastating. The grief, there was no words for the grief. You had so much hope for your baby, and to keep running into her issues and not having answers was hard, because I had such a hard time balancing my hope with reality. And then when a mom's instinct is something is wrong and everyone tells you you're not, and that you're just overreacting, it just gets so frustrating. But, at that time, I had to be strong for her. And a lot of people tell me I'm strong when I didn't want to be. And I think there is a thin line between being strong and surviving. And I felt like I was just in survival mode for her, because I didn't know what that meant, and nobody could tell me what it meant. So, it's just frustrating, because you look to the medical world for answers, and when they don't have them, you just feel like you're in limbo. So.
Yeah, I can imagine. I feel like sometimes I am just an autism mom, and I know the grief of that, finding out that my son has autism, and it's heartbreaking, but just thinking about your situation, it just feels like so much more, than, I can only imagine what you felt. Yeah, it's hard. So some of the symptoms and signs that you mentioned are very similar to autism. Did they rule out autism?
So this is where things get a little interesting. While Persephone has not been formally evaluated for autism, there is a strong overlap between her condition and traits seen in autism spectrum disorders. So many children with her genetic deletion show sensory processing differences, communication delays, repetitive behaviors, things traditionally associated with autism. And I always wonder, but what if autism and conditions like Persephone are just something bigger, something we don't fully understand yet? I mean, some researchers believe like children on the spectrum just might perceive the world in different neuro in ways that are just different than I guess neurotypical individuals just simply
Yeah.
can't. So as their brains are just wired to pick up things that are different, I often just wonder. So I know for sure that she doesn't experience the world and we do, and many children
Yeah.
with autism don't. And I know
Yeah.
Persephone currently is nonverbal, but she is not silent. So she communicates, without words, but still expresses, reacts, connects. And I wonder if children like her are just experiencing reality on just a different level.
Yeah.
Maybe just one that we haven't even began to understand. So though she has not been formally diagnosed with autism, and a lot is partially due because she's still small. They usually don't
Yeah.
typically test for autism until you're about 2.5, until they could view you, as Persephone is still almost a baby. So right now we're just focusing on her development, and while autism evaluation will be in the future, our priority is just ensuring that she's healthy, comfortable, and making progress in her own way.
So just to clarify, how old is she right now?
So Persephone was born in August of 2022. So she is 2.5 years old. She
Okay.
technically looks like she is physically in the body of like a 9 to 10 month old baby. So everyone
Okay.
just is always taken back by how she looks. And so when I went to a clinic to ask about autism and, if they could evaluate for her, they just kind of gave me that look like,
Yeah.
no, she's too young. And I'm like, well, your pamphlet says 2.5, and she's 2.5. And do
Wow.
that.
So do you face any challenges when it comes to getting her help in the medical system?
Absolutely. One of the biggest challenges is to access specialists, especially in the pediatric care and for special needs. We live in the capital of our state, and basic tests like hearing screenings aren't even available here. We have to travel hours away, which adds just that extra layer of difficulty when you're already juggling so many other medical needs. Another challenge is getting doctors to believe us. Because it's so rare, we often have to explain ourselves and explain it over and over, which is frustrating when you're looking for the guidance. Some doctors
Yeah.
are wonderful, others aren't. They hesitate, they dismiss, they assume. We've had situations where her small size just raised red flags for doctors who are unfamiliar with her genetic condition. And we've been questioned about whether she's malnourished or if her growth issues are entirely related to her disorder. We've heard whispers on whether or not this could be a child protective proceedings case. And it terrifies me. Being treated as though we weren't enough, when in reality, we've been fighting harder than most parents ever have to, or more than
Yeah.
they should. So when she was in her first 20 months, she had her first seizure. And I felt like doctors were less focused on her seizure and more focused on her size. Questioning, why is a 13-pound baby nearly 2 years old? And they were just questioning her existence. And instead of
Yeah.
treating her for her medical emergency, they questioned that existence. Another major obstacle we had was the lack of communication between different hospitals. Since Persephone's seen specialists in multiple institutions, there's no centralized system, especially for as large of a medical record she has in her 20 months of being here. So that means we were constantly repeating tests, re-explaining our medical history, and then just making sure nothing gets lost in the shuffle. And it's exhausting. And it's
Yeah.
incredibly heavy to just feel like an unfit parent, especially when we're doing everything in our power for her. You know, she failed her newborn test screening at the hospital, so we traveled out of town multiple times to have it retested. And when those tests remained inconclusive, we underwent surgery to have tubes put in her ears. And when that didn't work, she had to go under general anesthesia just to get a comprehensive exam. So, and then shortly after, that's what it took. You know, we fitted her for those hearing aids. And when she had vertical talus and she was diagnosed with that at 1 month old for 13 weeks straight, her legs were casted. Each week, we had to put on a new set of casts. And when her cast would get removed, we would have to quickly take her to her pediatrician and weigh her weekly because she was on a failure to thrive. And
Wow.
that was just so incredibly just hard for me, because as soon as she was weighed, we would just take her right back and get her recasted. And then by 6 months, she underwent surgery. It was 6 hours in surgery, just so we could
Yeah.
hope that maybe she will be able to stand or to walk someday. And that was painful in itself because there is not adequate pain management for infants. So by the time she hit her first birthday, she spent more than half her life in casts. And now for the next 2 years, she'll be in braces for 12 hours a day. You know, she's in therapy 3 times a week. Physical,
Yeah.
occupational, feeding, speech, and hearing. And we've done everything we possibly could to give her the care that she needs. And it's just beyond painful. After everything we do, we're still made to feel as if we aren't doing enough. And
Yeah.
again, it's exhausting emotionally, physically, to constantly fight for her care. But I know personally I will not stop advocating for her.
Yeah.
Beyond her immediate care, we've even taken steps, her dad and I, to advocate for her. We joined our state's Rare Disease Advisory Board so we could give a stronger voice to those families and people in the rare disease community in the state government. And our hope is to shape those policies and improve resources, making our home a better place for Persephone and for others facing those challenges. I guess at the end of the day, we're not fighting just for Persephone, but we're fighting to, bring that awareness for rare disorders like hers.
Yeah. It's a lot to go through as parents, but again, you guys are doing an amazing job and you're doing what's best for her. She could not have had better parents, you know. Um, yeah, you're fighting for her and doing everything to help her. And I feel like that's one thing that I want people to keep in mind, or I don't know if any doctors are hearing this that might face a case like yours, to be aware that this is happening, this could happen, and that they just need to believe parents, that when they tell you about if it's a rare condition, and not look at them like they don't know what they're doing, because
Yeah.
I'd love for families like you to be able to feel supported instead of feeling invalidated, which is very unfair and it's heartbreaking. Yeah.
Yeah, we try to remain strong, but we started off strong, but it just eventually just became survival.
Yeah. So, are there any doctors specialized in her condition, given its nature that it's so rare?
Unfortunately, no. Her condition is so rare that there are no dedicated specialists. The most dedicated doctor, known for authoring several journals, actually hails from Tunisia. However, the majority of her research in this field is currently being conducted in the UK. Even at the top institutions like the University of Michigan, the most they could provide was limited information on a handful of case studies. So her care is very fragmented. Neurologists for seizures, audiologists for hearing, gastroenterologists for feeding issues, orthopedic specialists for feet. Not one single doctor can put all the pieces together. which means we as parents have to be the one that connects those dots. So, I mean, we have to advocate for her and explain her condition to the very doctors who are supposed to be helping us. So,
Oh,
it's overwhelming as a parent when you know that even the medical world doesn't have all the answers.
yeah.
We were referred to Unique, which is a global support network for families affected by rare disorders. While there were only 800 members worldwide, the community we found was invaluable. You know, we share those experiences, those questions, the celebration of inch stones, the loss, because every step in this field just matters. And that small community has provided more insight, guidance, and emotional support than many of the medical professionals that we have actually encountered.
Yeah. I just can't imagine having to explain to a doctor who you're supposed to trust or hope that they're going to give you answers, having to explain to them your daughter's condition.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what kind of medical assistance is she getting right now?
So, as of right now, um, she sees all her specialists. They're on that rotation every 90 days. Neurologists for her seizures, that she's been seizure free for, so far. So, we're very grateful for that. Her pediatrician, she sees twice a year. We do go to a lot of wellness visits because children with her conditions are often always sick with some, they're just very autoimmune. So we do see the doctor quite a bit. I think we've averaged last year was an average of every 2.5 weeks, just because she would have something. And I mean, that's always hard. Her
Yeah.
orthopedist, we still have to see because he's still trying to hopefully get her to be able to bear some weight on her feet. Her therapist, we're still doing ongoing therapy, and that's 4 times a week, and they're on the rotation because she does need that. She does all the physical, occupational, hearing, feeding, speech. So those are some of the therapies I've never even heard of before until I had Persephone. So she's very maintained. She has at least 1 to 2 doctor appointments a week just to get her services. And then we also have her in early on, and they come out and do additional therapy with her. And then they will also enroll her into school this fall. So, we're very
Well,
grateful for the state to provide such a unique program for children with special needs. So they've been very helpful in paying and assisting us with medical equipment, wheelchairs, transportation, a variety of issues. Um, right now, we're still looking at a dietitian. That's her newest specialist. She's still formula fed after 2.5 years, and they are trying not to put in a feeding tube, but they want her to eat more. So we did a couple
okay.
swallow tests to see if maybe she just has problem swallowing or chewing.
Mhm.
Um, but her teeth are right on track for a 2-year-old. She had 2 swallow tests that proved fine. They came back with no issues. So they believe her feeding issues are due to just behavioral. They just think she's just not ready for it. So we just kind of
Yeah.
wait and see.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm hoping that you get that things get better and better on everything. And I'm just thankful that you have that the state is able to help you with all those services. So they do give you like a wheelchair and maybe in the future like a car seat, like a adaptive wheelchair and car seats and stuff like that.
Yeah, so I mean, despite her being 2.5 now, she is still in the same car seat that I took her home in the hospital from. She's just been that small. And
Yeah.
when they discussed her attending school, she can't attend school in a stroller. It has to lock and has to be some sort of just wheelchair that meets certain criteria for the school. So early on has graciously, have ordered her to a wheelchair. They give us bath chairs. They give us devices to help her walk, to stand. So our home is just filled with all this therapy equipment, so we could work with her. But we're very fortunate to be in a state to offer those type of assistance.
Yeah. So how does she communicate with you and others around her?
So Persephone doesn't communicate in words, but that doesn't mean she isn't expressive. She whines, she babbles, she screeches, she makes distinct tones that we have learned to interpret. Over time, I feel like we've developed a kind of nonverbal telepathy, a deep,
Yeah.
intuitive connection where we just know what she needs. I guess this
Yeah.
kind of aligns with that idea explored in those telepathy tapes that some
Yes.
individuals, yeah, that with those neurological differences might communicate beyond spoken language.
Yeah.
So if the brain is wired differently, that could open a door for more unspoken, energetic form of connection. So her
Yes.
behaviors, I feel like, are just often striking. They're just almost like mystical to me. So, for example, like many children will hold their hand like this,
Yeah.
but Persephone is like this. And if I
Okay.
go over there and pretend to take that orb, she'll be like, "What are you doing? Like,
Don't
how did
take
you just
it.
take it?" So, I mean,
Wow.
it's like an invisible orb, and her fingers move with it with such precision, like as if she's
Yeah.
like interacting
Really
with it.
holding something.
Yeah, and it's
Wow.
very unseen because, with children, it's like, okay, they'll just have their hand out or whatever. But when you could tell when someone has a real like kung fu grip on something, and that was her,
Yeah.
as if she's just interacting with just something unseen. So
Yeah.
another big thing about Persephone that I noticed was different right off the start is she doesn't make eye contact. Like
Yeah.
instead, she will just gaze through people, like almost like just seeing right through me. Like she wasn't
True.
looking at me. She was just looking right
Yeah.
through me, or maybe slightly to the side, as if she's
Yeah.
perceiving something beyond our comprehension.
Yeah.
And then sometimes, like at random, but not necessarily like due to overstimulation or anything, her eyes will roll up for a few seconds, like she's almost in like a trance. So her
Yeah.
neurologist ruled out absent seizures and called it behavioral with no definitive explanation. But I always wonder if there's something more or if she's connecting with something we just simply cannot see. She
Yeah.
also seems to speak, but just not to us, like to something else. She was just locked into like empty spaces and
Yeah.
fixates intensively, like if she's interacting with something invisible to us. But then I
Yeah.
wonder, could it be telepathic? Could it be spiritual? Or could it be that heightened sense of perception that I know neurologists always, thought with children and autism? And
Yeah.
I know that there's countless stories of children with extraordinary neurological differences who seem to tap
Yeah.
into something beyond something physical. So I
Yeah.
always wonder, could Persephone be part of that larger uncharted phenomenon, something
Yeah.
science can't really explain? Because right now
Yeah.
I'm in limbo. Nobody could explain anything to me. So what if it could be something more? Now, while I
Yeah.
don't have all the answers, we're just captivated by her mystery and the possibility that her story could be just maybe more than medical.
Yeah.
So maybe it's something spiritual, telepathic, or just unworldly. I just
Yeah.
know that her journey right now is teaching us to be more open minded to what's possible. And I'm just honored to be part of this extraordinary life of her. And I know that we don't have the answers, and I will never probably have the answers. But
Yeah.
what I know is that her way of experiencing the world is just, it's unique, it's mysterious, and it's just so deeply fascinating to me. So
Yeah.
yeah, with her
Amazing.
condition, it's just not a medical rarity. It just raises
Yeah.
so many questions about
So much.
perception and
Yeah.
consciousness and how we just experience the world. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, that part, that corpus callosum that bridges the two halves of the brain, that plays a
Yeah.
key role in processing those sensory input, emotions, and even the sense of time and space. And there has been research that speculates that the disruption in those areas could result in those heightened sensory perceptions or an altered state of awareness. So I often just wonder if that's what she's experiencing. Her reality
Yeah.
is just going to be very different because people and children like her, their brains are just tuned into that different frequency
Yeah.
and perceiving things that just we can. And there's just so much we don't understand about the mind or the brain or the ability to connect and to sense and just to perceive. So I just wonder about that.
Yeah. So I'm feeling like maybe you may have felt um seen, or feel like you might have gotten a little bit of, there's no answers, but like, do you feel like the telepathy tapes gave you a little bit of understanding?
It gave me something to think about. It gave me, dare I say, hope.
Yeah,
Like, I always thought
absolutely.
she was different. And, you know, when people told me, like, no, she's not different, she's just a baby, I was like, no, just,
Yeah.
but I know that maybe, what if she is? And I always wondered because she's 1 in 1 billion,
Yeah.
you know, in the world. There's only like, with her specific condition, there's only like 50 of her in the world. But
Yeah.
maybe she could be the first of her kind in something
Yeah.
else. And the telepathy tapes just made me know that, okay, maybe not all children with autism experiences, but
Mhm.
there is something common with these children. And it's a phenomenon to me. And I feel like
Yeah.
maybe perhaps there is something different about Percy.
Yes.
And it just gives me such a refreshing perspective that made me want to reach out more. And that's
Yeah.
why I ended up in your podcast today, because I reached out and took a
Mhm.
shot and was just like, hey, would anyone
Yeah.
want to hear Percy's story?
And absolutely, I know that her story will impact a lot of people. I just know it. I have that strong feeling. I've had it since we started talking. I feel like the telepathy tapes is helping not just autistic families with autistic children that are non-speaking. It's just everyone, with their own unique stories. Even just neurotypical people are, learning that there's so much more to what we know. So
Yeah. Yeah.
um, I'm glad that it helped you in that way. Um,
Yes, me too, because I felt like I was just stuck, you know, like we weren't really progressing. And when you're advocating, you just don't know where to go next, you know. And when I started going through, like, maybe there's a spiritual rebirth going on, you know, in my life, that
yeah,
maybe I was meant to keep looking and keep trying to find people and to advocate because she can't be the only one in the world.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. One thing that is hard is for us to feel like we're the only ones that are going through whatever hardship we're going through in our lives. I don't think that's how life is meant to be. And I do not believe that we are ever the only ones. Like, even for her, yeah, like your situation, you're not, you really aren't, there is a few more. So, have you ever met or have you connected with other families that have her kind of
Um,
condition?
not exactly her type. So when we're in that unique group, we are in like a little closed online community, and we could chat to everybody and then, experience see what they're all experiencing. And what I posed a question when I started digging into those telepathy tapes is like, I posed to the group, hey,
Mhm.
has any of your children experienced anything similar? And the
Yeah.
common consensus is that the veil with children is much thinner than
Yeah.
us, and they have done like a lot of things that they just interact so differently that
Yeah.
maybe there could be something there. So I've had a couple of them say, yeah, for sure. And then some others are just like, not really. But I mean, it could be something. So
Yeah.
I, I just, I just always wonder. And with our group, there's not many of us, and there's not many of us that was going to come forward and be like,
Yeah.
hey, maybe. But I've had people I've run into that are more in tune with their spirit guides, and I've
Yeah.
had people come up to me and was like, your baby is psychic.
Yeah.
And they're baffled because I'm like, well, I can't confirm or deny that. I don't know. And, when the telepathy tapes talk about like the hill, okay, I can't
Yeah.
confirm or deny that. But when
Yes.
I have people that are so spiritually in tune coming up to me and saying, your baby is psychic, and they're just floored almost
Yeah.
because they tell me they've never seen anything like her. They've never seen
Wow.
anything like that before. And with Percy, it's just like you look at her and she looks like a regular baby. She doesn't
Yeah.
even look like she has any disabilities on the outside.
Yeah.
She looks like a regular baby. So I think it does surprise people. It definitely takes a lot of people back. And my goal is to just maybe keep going down the spiritual path and just seeing if maybe we can find more answers. And
Yeah.
it's worth a shot.
Yeah. Absolutely. I just love that. Yeah, with the telepathy tapes coming out, we're even able to just talk about stuff like that, you know, openly, and knowing that people out there will actually be understanding. It's just I feel like after the telepathy tapes came, people are more open to, you know, more like these kinds of phenomenon. They're more believing of it or accepting of it. I don't know how you can say it, but
I feel like
before
they're
people
more
were,
acceptive.
oh, that's yeah,
Yeah. Because, when you mention, like, oh, maybe my baby, like telepathy tapes, I
yeah,
get two reactions. It's like, huh? Or,
yeah,
okay,
like
maybe you're a little crazy.
yeah,
But it's so nice to have a community where they're not going to
yeah,
look at you. They're not going to question you, that they all are going through similar things. And that's important because as parents with special needs or autistic children, it's like our children are having a hard time enough. And we
yeah,
just need to support them in
absolutely,
that. And
yeah,
if they could find a community, whether it's physical or spiritual, like they need to chase that
yeah,
because they just weren't, it's so different.
yeah,
They were just dealt with like a different just plate overall, So
yeah,
they have challenges, and it's just, we owe it to them to
yes,
find out
absolutely,
more.
yeah, yeah. They need to feel like they have that support, and we're the only ones who can go and find it for them. So yeah, from what we were just talking about, I feel like, as parents of children with disabilities, you with a child with a rare disease, it's very isolating. So I was wondering if you have found community, or do you have like a connection with families? Like you shared that you have that group. Can you talk a little bit more about it for anybody that might be interested in joining or finding that's looking for community?
Yeah, of course. We are so incredibly lucky to have a supportive family and friends who love Persephone. But when it
Yeah.
comes to people who truly understand that journey, it's incredibly isolating. We
Yeah.
have that online community for families and children that have the 1Q4 deletions, and they have been an absolute lifeline. We share those experiences, we could ask questions, we celebrate all the inch tones, and then when sometimes our children don't make it, it hurts.
Yeah.
So, but we're in it together, you know what I mean? But at
Yes.
the same time, there's no two cases that are the same. And Persephone is just one of a handful of children in the entire world with her exact deletion, which means that there's nobody that's ever going to be ahead of us to say, here, this is what worked for us.
Yeah.
So we're figuring out everything as we go. And I feel like we're navigating a blind path that has never been mapped before. And it's a very lonely and isolating journey. But within that, there's deep connection to other families who are walking this rare, uncharted road. And
Yeah.
because even when the details are different, the emotions, the struggles, and the fierce love for our children, that's something we all share.
Yes. I'm glad you have that, and it's a rare case. And it would be heartbreaking if you didn't have even just families that you might share some things in common with. So I'm glad you have that community and that you have family that is also very supportive and helpful. um, it really helps, because I know it can be very isolating. I feel like as an autism mom, even when I'm around people, I still feel isolated. I feel lonely around them. They don't have the same experiences. They don't know what the things that I'm going through, even if they're, supportive. You still feel that, but it's still good to have friends that are supportive.
No, it's very important to feel supported. And I feel
Yeah,
like you can't put a price on that. I mean,
yeah,
when we have Facebook groups and there's just so many, and there's so many deletions and genetics disorders, and they're all not the same. When Unique first gave us like a referral, they handed us a packet, and it had like 100 names in it. It was just like a Word document with like, here's their address, here's their phone number, here's the email. Good luck. And they'll have like a country of origin, and it'll be like Brazil, Poland, Colombia, the United Kingdom. And I couldn't find anyone in the United States. There was like maybe 2 of them. And then a lot of the children were unfortunately passed away. So I didn't
oh,
have a lot of that. And then you have the language barriers that you have to kind of work through
yes,
and to see. And a lot of emails went unresponsive. They were
yeah,
unresponsive, phone numbers are disconnected. And it was a lot because in this packet of 100 names, there was only like 3 that matched Percy. And I remember it
wow,
distinctly. It was Colombia, Poland, and I want to say Argentina. And it was just like, where does that leave me? I don't know Polish or Spanish or any. So I'm just like, it was just kind of hard reaching out. And then when you reach out and you don't hear back, you're just like, man,
it's hard.
I'm truly
Yeah,
alone. And, when
yeah,
it just kind of goes back to like those feelings that I've had because, when you first get told that your child is different and it becomes the feeling is like the death of hope,
yeah,
and you just, I can't even put into words like the amount of grief, the panic
yeah,
attacks, the unable to sleep, and always just wondering like, what's going to happen to my baby? What is ever going to happen? So I think about that often. So
gotta be really hard. I can only imagine. So, what would you say is the hardest part about being a mother to a child with a rare disease?
easily the hardest part is the unknown. And I know that the greatest human emotion of mankind is, fear. And the greatest fear is the fear of the unknown. Because there's
Yeah.
no blueprint, there's no clear expectations, there's no way to predict what her future will look like. Will she walk? Will she talk? Will she continue to face these medical complications? Will she grow up being independent? Will she need a home? No one can tell us that. So every decision just feels so weighty because of what if we're missing something? What if there's a therapy or a treatment or a breakthrough out there that we just haven't found yet? And what if we're just, and I always feel like, what if I'm not pushing hard enough? And it's just emotionally exhausting to constantly fight for that care, to educate doctors about her condition, and then to navigate a medical system that just isn't designed for rare diseases. But despite all of that, Persephone is my light. She's the light.
Yeah.
She teaches us patience, resilience, and a whole new way of seeing the world. And I know that people say to your children, like, they grow up so fast. But
Yeah.
with Persephone, time slowed down. At 10 months old, it was just as if she stopped growing. It took her 4 months to gain 1 single pound. And that's how slow she was growing. But I think there's something beautiful in that too, is because in a world that moves so fast, I've been given that gift of time. I get more cuddles. I get more tiny baby fingers wrapped around mine. I get more moments where she's just simply my baby. And while the challenges are very, very real, I couldn't trade this journey for anything.
Yeah.
Sorry. I am trying not to get emotional myself.
I don't want you to. I'm sorry. I couldn't.
It's good.
Yeah. I just, I just feel like you are doing an amazing job. And like when you mentioned that you feel sometimes that you are not doing your best, um, you are doing amazing. You're doing so amazing. And I feel like as moms, sometimes we feel that way and we feel like, am I not doing enough? Even though you were doing it all. You were doing it all. And just in your story, you are doing everything. Like imagine having to educate doctors about your daughter. Like you're doing such an amazing job. Your daughter is so lucky to have you. And I just want you to always remember that and know that. And um I'm inspired by your, resilience and your strength, even though I know you don't want to be strong.
No,
But
I don't. Not at all.
yeah. So, what is something that your daughter has taught you about life?
She taught me to be patient. She taught me to be resilient. And she teaches me to be strong. Because she's only 2 and she's went through so much. And it makes me feel like I have to be strong just like her. And she inspires me to be strong every day. And just to be okay with it,
Yeah.
just to accept things and to see that there could be something more out there and just to be open-minded. I know that Persephone's story is still being written, and every day I know that we are learning something new, and every single day she teaches us more than we ever thought was possible. Because I know that she will not be defined by her diagnosis. She's not limited to what the doctors expect, She is
Yeah.
Persephone. She's
Yes.
mystical, rare, she's full of wonder, and whatever the future holds, I know that we will be right here. I will be with her, walking alongside her, fighting for her, and learning from her every step of the way. Because I know that we are always going to be together. And I know that we are stronger together.
Yeah.
And without her, I wouldn't be strong. Not like her. And she has definitely taught me to be strong. So that is the
Yeah.
biggest thing she has taught me. And gosh, she taught me more than I even knew about myself, you know. And you just don't realize what you're capable of until you're faced with something that you have to take on. You know what I mean? And
Yes.
I work in a field where children are in a system because they have such medical issues, and then we have people that could, potentially care for them if they will accept them for who they are and what medical issues.
Yeah.
And with a lot of parents, we don't get that choice. We don't just, we have to take them for everything that they are. And we have to
Yeah.
learn from that every single day, because every day is not the same. Every day is just different.
Yeah.
And we have to accept that, and we love that. And that's what makes them who they are. And who they are becomes who we are. And they
Yes.
can't be who they are without us as their mothers. So it's just
Yes.
that circle of life. And, she just taught me to have faith, because I don't think I could go through this journey without having some sort of faith about something, about seeing some
Yes.
light. So I let go, and I just let God. I guess that's
Yes.
the best way to put it, because if we didn't accept some sort of all of them, then how would any of us just be here? We wouldn't even have this
Yeah.
community.
Yeah, we wouldn't.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Wow. That was beautiful. Looks
Oh
like
my.
I've been doing this work the whole time. I just don't want to make you cry.
Oh no, it's fine.
Oh,
It's good, because I went almost a year and a half. I couldn't even talk about Percy. Anytime someone mentioned her name, it hurt. Especially when
yeah.
you get that first diagnosis, it hurts. It hurts a lot.
Yeah.
And for that first year, I felt like I always had panic attacks.
Yeah.
Anytime. And imagine loving somebody so bad, loving someone so much, and that it feels like it kills you. You love something
Yeah.
so much it kills you. And that's why I'm kind of here, is because I'm trying to be strong and not to get so emotional, because when I go and I talk about her story more and more, I want to be comfortable with it. And
Yes.
she's 2. In a whole year and a half, I could not talk about her without having
Yeah.
that pit in my stomach, without wanting to throw up, I couldn't even step into a doctor's office without just wanting to throw up. And
Yeah.
I feel like nobody should have to go through that. And I feel
Yeah.
like if it wasn't such an isolating journey, maybe we would be okay with it. So
Yes.
now we're here, talking about it, and
Yes.
it's good. Like, this is good for me.
It's
So,
good. Yeah. I'm glad you're at that, point in your journey that you're now able to talk about it, and you're growing, and you're and getting comfortable talking about it. So, what advice would you give to anyone out there that might be going through the same thing you're going through, and they feel alone and they don't know where to begin? Yeah, what would you say to them?
advocate. Advocate fiercely. And just know that no one knows your child like you do. The doctors might have the medical expertise, but you are the expert of your child. I want you to challenge them, ask questions, Push for answers and don't let them ever dismiss your concerns. There were so many moments where we were just told, just wait and see. I don't know about her condition. Let's just wait and see what happens. But waiting, for me, isn't always an option. When it comes to early intervention, therapies, treatments, and if something feels wrong, push. Push for more testing. Push for more answers and push for the care your child deserves. I would also say find your people. Whether it's family, friends, or online support groups, surround yourself with people who believe in you, uplift you, and remind you that you are not alone. Most importantly, I struggle with this one, but it's give yourself some grace. It's okay to not be okay, because I know that it's so hard to balance that hope and that reality. This journey is hard. I would never prepared for it. It's physically, emotionally, and mentally exhausting, and there will be days where you feel like you're drowning. There's going to be a lot of days where you feel like you're drowning, that you can't make it out, where you doubt yourself, and there are so many days that you're going to wish things were just different, but I promise you every step forward, no matter how small, is worth celebrating. And then finally, that you are not alone. You are not alone.
Yeah.
And whether you want to believe it or not, you are doing enough.
Thank you. I was just in awe of how fiercely you advocate for your daughter, and you are such an amazing example for others out there. And I just know that you're really, really going to help a lot of people that might be going through what you're going through, or even going through something, a different kind of hardship, you know. And I'm just so thankful that you were willing to share your story, and you did it so
Thank
amazingly.
you so much for having me. I mean, thank you for giving me this opportunity. Honestly,
Yeah.
from the bottom of my heart, thank you. Because this is just a sign that, I was pushed to do something. And I don't think I even told you, but like prior to reaching out and when I was telling people my New Year's resolutions, and I was like, you know what? I want to start a podcast and talk about Percy's journey. And,
Yeah.
I have the TikToks about Percy's journey and all this, but I was like, there has to be something more.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, the next day, you came into my DMs and said, hey, you inspire me. And I'm like, wow, if that is not a sign, then
It was meant to be. Yep,
yeah.
absolutely.
And it gave me such chills because it's
Yeah,
like,
I just got chills right now.
because somebody was looking out for me. And I literally said those words to like a couple coworkers, like, I'm gonna start a podcast. And then
Yes.
when you came in, I was like, oh, it was amazing. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just glad to be able to talk about her and talk about her journey because, like I said, it's just sometimes it just feels like our system was just not equipped for rare diseases. And,
Mhm.
I know that she will get diagnosed with some sort of autism.
Yeah.
And I know that autism is just a different type of story. And
Yeah.
it's so different. But they are people and they are just so different with their own languages. And it's just, I'm excited to see what Percy could bring and what I hope and I pray that it helps somebody. And
Yeah.
I hope that
Absolutely.
maybe there's some takeaway in this. So.
Every story is there for a reason, and I feel like each story has the power to impact others in a way, and yours is unique, and it's hard, but it also is inspiring. And so I just know that you're doing an amazing job, and you're going to be, your story will be a roadmap for somebody. out there that is going through the same thing you're going through or a different kind of hardship.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you guys so much for tuning in today. If you haven't yet, please consider subscribing to the channel so you can get notified whenever I post a new episode. Until next time.